You weren't born ashamed. You were born pure. A blank canvas with fire behind your eyes. The world hadn't yet named you. You hadn't yet learned to shrink. You didn't ask if you were enough, because you were. Then came the masks, the voices, the punishments, the sideways glances, the labels that stuck like thorns under your skin. And somewhere along the way, you made a silent agreement. If I hide who I really am, maybe they'll stop hurting me. Shame is not yours. It's inherited, conditioned, implanted. It's the infection that begins when someone else convinces you that being you is a problem that needs to be fixed. But here's the truth. Shame is not a flaw. It is a mechanism of control. It is the leash that keeps powerful people small. It is the prison constructed by fear to keep your soul obedient. And every time you bite your tongue when you want to speak, every time you laugh to blend in, every time you agree just to avoid rejection, you reinforce the same silent lie. I am not allowed to exist as I am. But you are. You are not too much. You are not broken. You are not wrong for wanting what you want, needing what you need, or becoming who you're becoming. You are not shame. You are the one carrying it, and you can put it down. Let's talk about psyphoria, the psychological euphoria of remembering your soul. Most people won't recognize the word, but you felt it. It's that moment of deep inner alignment when your gut, your heart, and your mind all say yes in unison. It's that clarity that arrives like lightning, the moment you stop pretending, the moment you tell the truth, not just to others, but to yourself. That is psyphoria. And you can't reach it while holding shame. Because shame distorts the lens through which you see everything, especially yourself. You won't build a powerful future while secretly believing you are unworthy of one. This is the root. No affirmation can grow in poisoned soil. You don't need more positivity. You need to rip the mask off and see the beliefs beneath it. Because you don't get free by ignoring shame. You get free by dragging it into the light and watching it dissolve. Let's talk about mindset. Most people think mindset is about being positive, but mindset is not optimism. Mindset is construction. It's the architecture of your inner world. And if shame is the foundation, every belief you build on top of it will collapse. You were taught to think in survival mode, taught to scan for disapproval, taught to stay silent when you had something sacred to say, taught to equate visibility with danger. That wasn't mindset, that was conditioning. Mindset begins where conditioning ends. Mindset is when you start asking, what if the story I was told about myself isn't true? Because here's the thing, most people don't live their lives. They live their trauma's life. They live their fear's life. They live their parents' unfinished dreams and society's expectations, and then wonder why they feel numb. You want to change your life? Change the mind that's been living it? Now belief? Belief is the engine, but shame hijacks it. When you believe you're not enough, you create a life that proves it. Not because it's true, but because your subconscious is always trying to make sense of your suffering. It wants the pain to mean something. So it builds a narrative where the pain fits, a narrative where you deserved it. But belief is a choice, not a truth. You can believe you're broken, and your actions will reflect it. You can believe you're unworthy, and your standards will mirror it. Or you can tear out the belief by the root and plant something new. No one gives you permission to believe in yourself. You take it. Belief doesn't ask for evidence, it creates it. Clarity, that sacred force. Most people think they lack motivation. They don't. They lack clarity. They walk through life like fog, waiting for someone to give them direction. But you weren't designed to follow you. We're designed to see. Clarity is not found in the world. It's forged in silence. in sitting still long enough to feel the truth rise through your chest like fire. Clarity doesn't come from avoiding shame. It comes from facing it and asking, what do I know about myself that the world tried to make me forget? Clarity is painful because it burns the illusions. But it's the kind of pain that liberates. It's the pain of rebirth. And now vision. Vision is not a fantasy. It's memory. You don't create your future, you remember it. You know the feeling, the faint echo of who you were before the world put its hands on you. The you that still dances under your skin. Vision is that voice, that whisper in the night that says, there's more. Not more to achieve, not more to prove, but more of you to become. When you hold vision, you hold power. Because nothing is more dangerous to the system than someone who knows who they are and where they're going. That's why shame was given to you early, to make you forget, to keep you blind, to keep your eyes down and your light dim, but not anymore. You don't need a bigger dream. You need a clearer mirror. Purpose? Let's be honest. Most people aren't searching for purpose. They're running from shame, trying to prove their matter by doing more, being more, achieving more. But purpose isn't about escaping what you hate. It's about becoming who you are. It's not something you find. It's something you uncover, like gold buried beneath rubble. Purpose is the intersection of truth and action. And you never touch it while lying to yourself about who you are. Purpose begins when you say, I refuse to abandon myself one more day, not to be accepted, not to be understood, not to make others comfortable. You were not born to be digestible. You were born to be divine. Discipline, not the punishment kind, the holy kind. The discipline to get up when shame says, stay down. The discipline to speak when silence is safer. The discipline to show up before you feel ready. The discipline to walk away from anyone who profits from your self-betrayal. This is where identity is reforged in the crucible of repeated truth. Shame will whisper, you don't deserve this. Discipline responds, watch me anyway. Action. Real transformation doesn't happen in your head. It happens in motion. Thought is potential. Action is power. And shame thrives in hesitation. Shame delays. Shame stalls. Shame tells you, maybe later, maybe next time, maybe after they approve. But action is the antidote. Action breaks the spell. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be true. One honest decision, one boundary enforced, one truth spoken out loud that you used to whisper only to yourself. That's how you reclaim the territory shame tried to steal. Because the more you act in alignment with who you really are, the more shame begins to panic. It loses its grip when you stop waiting for someone to validate your becoming. Every time you act in defiance of your old story, you rewrite the narrative. You don't heal by overthinking. You heal by moving. So move. Even if your voice shakes, even if you're not sure, even if the shame screams louder, that scream is not your soul, it's the sound of old chains breaking. Gratitude, but not the kind they teach in self-help books. Not the shallow kind that tells you to ignore the darkness and smile through pain. Real gratitude is forged in the furnace. It's the type that says, thank you for the betrayal it showed me who I'm not. Thank you for the failure it revealed where I was still hiding. Thank you for the shame. It was the teacher that showed me the cage. Gratitude is not a distraction. It's alchemy. It's how you transmute wounds into wisdom. It's how you reclaim authorship over a story you didn't choose. Because the moment you stop resenting your past and start owning it is the moment shame has no place left to live. Gratitude ends the war within. You can't hate the path and love who you became from it at the same time. Adaptability. You must become water. Shame makes you rigid. It tells you to freeze, to hide, to blend in. But healing makes you fluid, adaptive, unstoppable. The moment you let go of the identity that shame forced on you, you realize something profound. You were never meant to be static. You are not your past. You are not a label. You are not a personality test. You are becoming endlessly. Every day is a shedding. You don't have to protect your old self. You don't have to stay consistent with who you used to be just to make others comfortable. The ones who truly love you will celebrate your becoming. The rest were just committed to your mask. Adaptability is not weakness. It is intelligence. The most powerful people aren't the ones who force the world to change for them. They change themselves to meet the moment while staying rooted in who they are. Stay fluid, stay fierce, stay true. Resilience. They'll tell you resilience is about getting up when life knocks you down. But that's only part of the truth. Real resilience is getting up without needing to explain yourself. It's showing up again and again, even when no one claps. It's walking back into your life after shame convinced you to abandon it. Resilience is not how loud you roar, it's how steady you breathe while walking through fire. Shame wants you to believe that breakdown is failure. But breakdown is sacred. Breakdown is a sign that the old system is dying. And beneath every collapse is an opportunity for rebirth. You haven't lost yourself. You're shedding what was never you to begin with. Resilience is remembering that every scar is a seed if you choose to plant it. Learning. This is where the true separation begins between those who grow and those who repeat. Shame resists learning because learning means facing what you didn't know. It means acknowledging blind spots. It means being seen not as perfect, but as evolving. But there's no power in pretending. The wisest people are not those who know everything. They are the ones who remain teachable, even when they've conquered mountains. Learning is an act of rebellion against shame, because shame says you should already know, but wisdom says you're allowed to grow. The moment you choose growth over image, you step into sovereignty. The false self is obsessed with appearances. The true self is obsessed with evolution. Learn not to prove, not to impress, but to remember what's been buried. You are not becoming someone new. You are unlearning everything that made you forget who you were. And now, the return. Because this isn't about improvement, it's about return. Return to self. Return to soul. Return to center. The journey is not linear, it's circular. You began whole. You were pulled apart. Now, you gather yourself, piece by piece, memory by memory, boundary by boundary. You return. And as you do, shame begins to evaporate. Because shame cannot exist in a person who fully owns themselves. Not perfectly, not loudly, but completely. You don't need to shout. You don't need to convince. You just need to remember you were never the problem the story was. And now you write a new one. With spine, with fire, with breath. You walk back into your life not as who you were told to be, but as who you choose to be. Unmasked, unapologetic, unchained. You reclaim the name that shame tried to erase. You, silence. There's a kind of silence that breaks you, and a kind that builds you. The silence of repression and the silence of remembrance. Most people live in the first, the silence of shame, the silence that comes after betrayal, after dismissal, after shrinking yourself so many times that your voice forgets how to rise. But there's another silence, the kind that hums with power, The kind you feel in the presence of those who no longer seek validation. It's not the absence of sound, it's the presence of sovereignty. Because when you no longer need to explain, to justify, to be understood, you become undeniable. Let them misunderstand you. Let them whisper. Let them label what they cannot comprehend. Their noise has nothing to do with your truth. When you embrace that kind of silence, the one that holds no apology, no performance, no disguise, you become the storm that doesn't need thunder to shake the ground. Boundaries. You're not here to be accessible to everyone. You're not here to be agreeable. You're not here to carry what was never yours. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors. They don't close you off, they keep you sacred. They don't isolate you, they protect your becoming. Saying no isn't rude. It's responsible. Walking away isn't weak. It's wise. Refusing to explain yourself is not arrogance, it's alignment. Because shame taught you to tolerate, to over-explain, to absorb discomfort just to avoid being rejected. But healing teaches you to withdraw from anything that costs your peace. Every time you say, this is not okay, you're not pushing people away. You're pulling your soul back into your own hands. Boundaries are how you teach the world who you are. And more importantly, how you remind yourself, power, real power, isn't loud. It doesn't flex. It doesn't scream for attention or beg for a seat at the table. Real power builds its own table. It's quiet, stable, anchored. It comes from owning your scars without shrinking into them. From walking into every room without needing to dominate because you're already complete. Power doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't need a title. It doesn't need applause. It needs clarity, conviction, consistency. Power isn't something you find. It's something you remember. It's not something you perform. It's something you embody. You don't become powerful when the world agrees you are. You become powerful the moment you stop needing it to. Integration. Healing isn't about becoming a better version of yourself. It's about bringing all the broken, hidden, discarded parts of you back into the light. It's not becoming new. It's becoming whole. You were taught to abandon parts of yourself. The rage, the grief, the softness, the desire, the intuition. But those weren't flaws, they were your fire. You don't need to erase them, you need to reclaim them. Because integration is not about being perfect, it's about being honest. The shadow you fear, that's just the power you buried under guilt. The emotions you suppress, that's just truth knocking on the inside of your ribcage. Integration is when the war inside you ends. Not because you chose one side, but because you welcomed every part back home. Awakening. This isn't about healing so you can function in a broken world. This is about healing so you can build a new one. One where your worth isn't attached to productivity. Where your voice isn't censored by approval. Where your identity isn't compromised for comfort. Awakening is painful because it burns the life you outgrew. But in the ashes, you meet the part of you that was never touched by shame. You meet the witness, the one who watched you fall and rise and bleed and fight and never left. And that part of you doesn't want perfection. It just wants your loyalty. You were never meant to stay asleep in a story that kept you small. You were meant to rise, to awaken, to return. Obedience is not always enforced with chains. Sometimes it's handed to you dressed as comfort. You weren't born afraid to speak. You weren't born afraid to choose. You weren't born to ask for permission. You were taught to. They taught you that compliance is virtue. They trained you to fear rejection more than regret. They gave you rewards for being agreeable, not for being awake. And so you learned. You learned to lower your eyes instead of raise your voice. You learned to smile when something felt wrong. You learned to follow rules that no one ever explained, only enforced. Not with force, but with silence, with exclusion, with the unspoken threat that if you step too far outside, you will be labeled, dismissed, erased. That's how it begins. Not with violence, but with slow erosion. Not with war, but with whispers. Society doesn't need prisons when it can train you to fear your own freedom. It doesn't need walls when it can convince you that obedience is love, that submission is peace, that being good means never questioning what good even means. This is how obedience is manufactured. They give you a script. Be polite, be quiet, be normal, get a job, chase status. Don't ask too many questions. Don't rock the boat. Don't outgrow the system that raised you. Because if you do, you will scare them. And if you scare them, they will try to shrink you. You'll be told you're arrogant, you're too much, you're ungrateful, you're rebellious, you're dangerous. Not because you are, but because you remembered that your life belongs to you. Syphoria, the intoxication of collective illusion. You feel it every time you scroll, every time you buy what you don't need, every time you smile while suffocating. You are surrounded by noise, but starving for truth, plugged into everything, yet deeply disconnected from yourself, entertained but never empowered. That is the cost of unexamined obedience. They don't want thinkers. They want followers. They don't want strength. They want stability, their kind of stability. Stability built on your conformity. The illusion of freedom is more effective than the threat of force. So they let you speak as long as it's safe. They let you vote as long as the options are the same. They let you dream as long as your dream fits inside their economy. You are free to be anything as long as it doesn't threaten the design. And here's the darkest part. They train you to police yourself. You censor your voice before anyone else does. You shrink your ambition before anyone critiques it. You mute your instincts before they become inconvenient. Because somewhere inside, you've internalized the idea that compliance equals survival. And in many ways it did. As a child, you learned that pleasing others meant safety, that quietness kept the peace, that being good meant being invisible. But you are no longer a child, and yet you still kneel like one to systems, to structures, to expectations that were never built for your freedom. Mindset is the battleground, and belief is the weapon. If they can control what you believe about yourself, they never have to control your actions, because you'll do it for them. You'll believe your value is in your productivity. You believe rest is laziness. You believe that your worth must be proven daily in achievements, in income, in obedience. You will believe that the cage is your home, that the leash is a necklace, that burnout is noble, that burnout is success. But belief is not truth. Belief is programming, and you have the right to rewrite it. Clarity is rebellion. To see the invisible bars, to name the manipulation, to realize that normal is not natural, it's designed. You are not broken because you don't fit this world. This world is broken because it was never built to fit you. It was built to keep you busy, distracted, divided, exhausted, because a tired mind doesn't question. A distracted soul doesn't rebel. A divided people are easier to control. That is the design to keep you obedient without you ever noticing you've been trained. Vision is how you break it. To dream outside their blueprint. To imagine without permission. To want more than you're allowed to say out loud. And yes, it will cost you. Clarity always does. You will lose comfort. You will lose approval. You will lose the illusion of belonging. But what you gain? You gain yourself. You gain your spine, your soul, your sovereignty. And you gain the unshakable knowing that you are not a machine. You are not a servant. You are not a pawn. You are a creator, a force, a being designed to expand, not obey. Purpose is what pulls you out, not the purpose they gave you, not status, not titles, not applause. The true purpose, the kind that wakes you in the middle of the night, the kind that stirs something ancient in your bones, the kind that doesn't need validation because it is validation. When you reconnect to that purpose, the spell begins to break. You stop asking for instructions. You stop waiting for signs. You stop delaying your destiny. Because finally, you remember you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to wake up. And waking up isn't gentle. It's not some peaceful sunrise through linen curtains. It's a rupture, a collapse, a shaking loose of everything you once called truth. You'll see it in your career. The ladder you've been climbing leans against a wall you don't even believe in. You'll see it in your relationships, the people you surround yourself with love, your silence more than your soul. You'll see it in your routines, the rituals that were supposed to bring meaning now feel like cages you willingly walk into every morning. Because awakening is not the adding of new truths, it's the death of old illusions. And society, it thrives on illusion. It thrives on your forgetfulness. It thrives on the hope that you will never question the map, only keep walking the path. Discipline becomes your revolution, not discipline for approval, not the kind that earns praise from the system, the kind that builds inner fortitude, discipline of thought, discipline of boundaries, discipline to walk alone when the herd demands your silence, because obedience loves company. But freedom often walks alone. You will have to face yourself without the noise. You will have to sit in the echo of your own voice and ask, do I even know who I am when I'm not performing? That question is terrifying, but it's also sacred. Because in that question, in that pause, you meet the real you, the one buried under 1,000 layers of expectation, programming, fear. And when you meet that version, you will realize why they taught you to fear solitude. Because solitude reconnects you to source, to intuition, to instinct, to something they cannot monetize or measure or mold. Action becomes your uprising, not loud, dramatic, chaotic action, but precise, intentional, unshakable action. The kind that doesn't wait for applause. The kind that doesn't need an audience. The kind that doesn't ask if it's allowed. You stop chasing permission and start being permission. Your life becomes the message. Your alignment becomes the protest. Your peace becomes the threat. Because nothing is more terrifying to a control-based system than a soul that no longer fears losing it. They lose their grip when you no longer need their reward. They lose their hold when your truth is louder than their noise. They lose their power the moment you stand up and say, I see you, and I choose me. Gratitude becomes your armor. Not passive gratitude, not the kind that says, I'll stay because at least I have something. But the kind that says, I am thankful for what I have, but I will not shrink to keep it. Gratitude for the clarity. Gratitude for the shake-up. Gratitude for the heartbreak that woke you up. Because every betrayal sharpened your discernment. Every rejection cleared space for truth. Every disappointment peeled away the parts of you that were never real to begin with. And that kind of gratitude is not sweet. It's fierce. It's liberating. It reminds you that loss isn't punishment. It's pruning. You're not being cut down. You're being carved into something truer. Adaptability becomes your secret weapon. Not the kind of adaptability they trained into you where you bend for approval, but the kind that bends reality. You stop adapting to fit society. You start adapting society to fit your soul. You create, you question, you build systems that honor life, not profit. You become dangerous because you're no longer predictable. You're no longer programmable. You are no longer one of them. You are something else now. You are awake. And there is nothing more terrifying to a dying system than someone who can see through it and still walk with love, still speak with clarity, still move with purpose, still build while others obey. Resilience becomes your foundation because they will try to pull you back, not always with force, often with guilt, with you've changed, with you're so difficult now, with why can't you just be normal again? They will shame your transformation because it reminds them of their stagnation. Do not return to who you were. That version of you was surviving. This version, this one, is living. And it will hurt because rebirth always does. It will stretch you, break you, force you to choose solitude over sedation, truth over tradition, sovereignty over comfort. But on the other side of that pain is something you've never tasted before. Yourself, unfiltered, unowned, unshackled. You will become a living contradiction, silent but thunderous, grounded but untamed, compassionate but no longer compliant. You will walk through the same cities, past the same people, through the same conversations, and feel like a stranger because you no longer belong to the machine. You belong to the moment. And the moment you belong to yourself again, everything changes. Your energy no longer leaks. Your time no longer bleeds. Your life no longer bends to invisible masters. You become the architect of your thoughts, your path, your entire existence. And here is the final truth. You were never truly obedient. You were just afraid. Afraid to lose approval. Afraid to be seen. Afraid to stand alone. But fear is not a life strategy. It is a warning system, a teacher, a gatekeeper. And the moment you walk through it, really walk through it, you realize the only thing that ever kept you caged was the belief that you needed one. You are not here to obey. You are here to transform. So transform fully, fiercely, finally. Because once you transform, you become irreversible. You don't go back to the old table just because there's a seat. You don't crawl back into roles that require your silence. You don't dim the fire. You had to walk through hell to ignite. You see with different eyes now. Eyes that recognize conditioning, that decode manipulation, that spot the disguise of safety that's really just sedation. You speak in a new language, one that honors truth over comfort, depth over distraction, liberation over illusion. And suddenly, you're untouchable. Not because you're invincible, but because you're indivisible. The world can't fracture you anymore. The crowd can't drown you. Their opinions can't define you. You are no longer a fragment playing pretend in a house built on fear. You are whole. You are aware. You are dangerous in the most beautiful way. You don't follow the script anymore because you realized the script was never yours. It was handed to you by the culture, by institutions, by frightened people who learned obedience the hard way and passed it down like an heirloom. But you're here to break that lineage. You're not here to inherit trauma. You're here to interrupt it. You're not here to continue the tradition of self-sacrifice for acceptance. You're here to end it. Let them call you the black sheep. Let them say you lost your way. Because in truth, you found something far greater than their approval. You found yourself, the one who doesn't need to perform, the one who doesn't wait for cues, the one who doesn't ask, is it okay to be me now? You are done asking. You are done hoping, done shrinking, done playing by rules that were never designed to lead you to freedom. You don't need to be led anymore. You remember the compass inside your chest, and it points inward, always inward, to the sacred territory no system can colonize. Learning becomes your revolution now. Not academic learning, not regurgitated facts to please a system, but the kind of learning that rewires your existence. You start unlearning everything they told you was true. About power, about success, about love, about worth. You realize success isn't hierarchy, it's harmony. Love isn't sacrifice, it's sovereignty. Worth isn't earned, it's remembered. This is the education you were never given, the curriculum of awakening. And once you begin, you never stop. Every conversation becomes a test. Every room, a mirror. Every moment, a choice. Obedience or authenticity, silence or soul. You no longer fear the question. You welcome it, because your life now is a practice of conscious rebellion, not against people, but against the unconsciousness that numbed you for years. You become a beacon, not by force, but by resonance. You walk into a room, and those still asleep feel the discomfort of your presence, because something in you reminds them of the freedom they buried. They will call you too much, too intense, too focused, too free. Wear it like armor. Because if your freedom doesn't disturb the obedient, it's not real freedom. You weren't made to blend in. You weren't made to dilute. You were made to disturb the silence, to speak what others suppress, to build what others only dream of, to become what they said was impossible. A soul fully awake in a world designed to keep you asleep. So here you are, standing at the edge of everything they told you to fear, and realizing it was never about fear. It was about control, but not anymore. From this moment forward, you live untethered, unhooked from the matrix of mental manipulation, unwilling to trade your fire for their formula. You see through the veil, and still you rise, still you love, still you build, still you breathe deeper than ever before, because nothing is more sacred than this. A mind you own, a heart that isn't edited, a spirit that bows to no one. This isn't rebellion. This is remembrance. This is what it means to be free. Finally, fully, forever,